caught my spoiled sister kissing my boyfriend just days before her wedding, and what I did after will shock you. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 26 years old, and for most of my life I've been living in the shadow of my older sister, Jessica. She's 28, the golden child of the family, the one who always got what she wanted. Growing up, if Jessica wanted the bigger bedroom, she got it. If she wanted new clothes, my parents found a way. And me? I was always expected to understand, to be the easygoing sister who kept the peace. Even as adults, not much has changed. Jessica is getting married in 1 week, and you'd think that would be a happy time for all of us. I've been helping her plan the wedding for months, running errands, sitting through dress fittings, even helping her write her vows when she couldn't decide what to say. I told myself I was doing it out of love, but deep down, I think I just didn't want to disappoint my parents again. Through all of this, I leaned on my boyfriend, Ryan Miller. He's 27, and we've been together for 2 years. I thought we had a strong relationship, one that could maybe even lead to marriage someday. He was charming, funny, and he had this way of making me feel like I mattered in a family where I usually felt invisible. To me, Ryan was home. Jessica, of course, always liked to tease me about Ryan. She'd say things like, "Don't let him get bored with you, Em," or, "You better step up your game. Guys like him don't stay single for long." I used to laugh it off, because that's just Jessica. She always needed to be the center of attention, even when it came to my life. I never thought she'd actually cross the line. The week leading up to her wedding was chaos. Flowers, decorations, last-minute dress adjustments. It was a whirlwind. I was exhausted, but I kept telling myself it would all be worth it once I saw her walking down the aisle, smiling, happy, ready to start a new life with her fiancé, Mark. He's a great guy, by the way. Steady, kind, and genuinely in love with her. He doesn't deserve what's coming. At that point, I still believed everything was fine. I still believed Jessica was just my bossy older sister, and Ryan was my loyal boyfriend. I had no idea that in just a few days, my entire world would come crashing down. Because nothing could have prepared me for the moment I walked in and saw the two people I trusted most, my sister and my boyfriend, wrapped up in each other's arms, kissing like I didn't exist. I got home earlier than usual that day, tired but glad to finally have a quiet evening to myself. As I unlocked the door, I immediately noticed something strange. The lights in the living room were on, and I could hear voices drifting through the hallway. A soft laugh followed, light and playful, and it froze me in place. It wasn't just anyone's laugh, it was my sister's. At first, I thought maybe Jessica had come by to borrow something, like she always did. But then I caught another sound mixed with hers, deeper and familiar. My stomach tightened when I realized it was Ryan's. My pulse picked up as I moved closer, footsteps careful against the hardwood floor. Each step seemed heavier than the last, like my body already knew something I didn't want to face. When I reached the living room doorway, the sight in front of me shattered everything. Jessica was sitting on the couch, and Ryan was leaning into her, their lips pressed together. For a second, my brain couldn't even process what I was looking at. My breath caught in my throat, and I felt rooted to the floor, like the world had tilted and left me hanging in the wreckage. They pulled apart the instant they noticed me standing there. Both faces went pale, panic flickering across their expressions. Ryan jumped to his feet, stammering, "Emily, wait, it's not what it looks like." Jessica smoothed her hair, forcing a laugh that sounded too thin. "You're overreacting," she said quickly. "It was just a stupid mistake, nothing serious." The excuses came fast, one layered over the other, as if they thought the right combination of words could erase what I had just seen. Ryan kept reaching for me, saying he'd explain everything, while Jessica crossed her arms, acting like I had walked in on something trivial. But I couldn't move. My body felt numb, like all the air had been sucked out of me. My hands were trembling, and I couldn't tell if it was from rage or heartbreak. All I knew was that the two people I trusted most had ripped something out of me in an instant. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. No words, no accusations, just silence pressing down heavier and heavier. My chest burned, humiliation spreading through me as I realized this wasn't some nightmare I could wake up from. This was real. This was happening. Their voices kept spilling excuses into the room, but none of it mattered. My sister, my boyfriend, together, and me, standing there broken, watching the pieces of my world collapse around me. I cornered Jessica later that night, needing answers I wasn't going to get in front of Ryan. My hands were shaking, my throat raw from holding everything in, but I still forced the words out. "How could you do that to me?" I asked, staring straight at her. She barely blinked. Her eyes rolled like I was nagging her about a borrowed sweater instead of something that shattered me. "Oh, come on, Emily," she said, voice calm, dismissive. "It was just a kiss. Don't turn this into some big drama." You always blow things out of proportion. I couldn't believe how casual she sounded. My chest ached with every word she brushed aside. You're getting married in less than a week, I reminded her, voice cracking. And you kissed my boyfriend. Her mouth curled into a smirk, like she found it all laughable. Exactly. I'm about to walk down the aisle. Do you really want to ruin everything over one stupid mistake? My wedding is more important than your little feeling. Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. She wasn't even sorry. She didn't care what it did to me. All she cared about was keeping her picture-perfect day intact. I went to our parents, desperate for someone to finally stand on my side. I thought maybe, just this once, they'd defend me. But when I told them, their faces hardened in unison. My mom sighed and shook her head, and my dad's jaw clenched. Emily, Mom said softly, please don't do this. Jessica has worked so hard for this wedding. Dad's voice followed, firm and heavy. You can't ruin the biggest day of her life because of some petty jealousy. Keep quiet and let her be happy. My stomach turned as their words sank in. Petty jealousy. Like I had imagined the whole thing. Like my pain was nothing compared to Jessica's big day. They didn't even ask how I was doing, didn't even try to comfort me. They just closed ranks around her, the golden daughter, while I stood there with my heart in pieces. I looked at all three of them, Jessica smug behind our parents, and realized the truth. I was completely alone in this. My family wasn't going to protect me. They weren't going to fight for me. They wanted me silent, tucked away, invisible. The fury rising inside me felt different than the shock I'd felt earlier. It burned hotter, sharper. I wasn't just hurt, I was erased. My trust, my relationship, my voice, none of it mattered to them. I left that room with my teeth clenched, fists tight at my sides, and one thought echoing in my mind. If they wanted me quiet, they were going to regret underestimating. I spent the next day pacing, mind torn in two. Part of me wanted to stay silent, to let everything unfold without me. But every time I pictured Mark standing at the altar, smiling at Jessica, vowing forever to someone who had already betrayed him, my stomach twisted. He didn't deserve to be fooled. He had treated me with nothing but kindness since the day I met him. Hardworking, steady, the type of man who showed up for people. And she was about to make a fool out of him. The thought made my decision for me. I couldn't let him walk into that marriage blind. Even if no one else in my family cared about the truth, I did. I called him, asking if we could meet, making up some excuse about needing advice. His voice was warm, as always, but I could hear a hint of concern. We arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop away from town, somewhere no one from our circle would overhear. When he walked in, he greeted me with a smile, the same kind he gave Jessica, like she was his whole world. That smile made my chest ache, knowing what I was about to do. He sat across from me, waiting, patient. So, what's on your mind? I asked. My throat tightened. The words were heavy, but I forced them out. Mark. I saw Jessica with Ryan. His brow furrowed, confusion flickering before I clarified. I walked in and saw them kissing. The color drained from his face, and he leaned back like the air had been knocked out of him. He didn't speak right away, his hands gripping the edge of the table. When he finally found words, they were quiet, almost broken. Are you sure? Yes, I said firmly, meeting his eyes. I saw it with my own eyes. He rubbed his face, torn apart. Then he asked the one thing I had dreaded. Do you have any proof? Pictures? Messages? Anything? I shook my head, the shame burning through me. No, just what I saw. That's all I have. The silence that followed stretched long, heavy, pressing down on both of us. He stared at the table, jaw tight, and I could see the storm in his eyes. Betrayal, disbelief, love still tangled up with the hurt. Finally, he exhaled, voice flat. I need time to think. I nodded, heart pounding, knowing I had dropped a grenade in his lap. The air between us was thick with unspoken word. I wanted to reach across the table, to comfort him, but I stayed still. His life had just been ripped open, and I was the one who tore the seam. When he stood to leave, his shoulders were slumped, and he didn't look back. The weight of what I'd done followed me out the door, heavier with every step. Ryan showed up at my apartment the following evening, his face full of forced remorse. He knocked softly, calling my name as if lowering his voice would erase what he had done. I let him in, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to hear what lies he'd spin. He started right away, hands raised in a mock surrender. Emily, listen, it was a mistake. I swear. She came on to me. I didn't mean for it to happen. His words tumbled out fast, rehearsed, like he'd been practicing them in the mirror. I studied him closely, waiting for something real, some hint of guilt in his eyes. But all I saw was desperation. He wasn't apologizing because he regretted hurting me. He was panicking because he didn't want to lose either of us. My chest tightened as the truth settled in. He wasn't sorry. He was just scared of being left with nothing. When I didn't respond, he tried again, moving closer, lowering his tone. You know I love you. Don't let her ruin what we have. The words tasted bitter in my ears. He wanted me to blame Jessica, to carry the burden, while he stood there pretending to be the victim. Later that week, I crossed paths with Jessica. She didn't avoid me, didn't even flinch. Instead, she acted like everything was perfectly normal. She carried herself with a smug air, tossing her hair back as if my silence meant she had won. When I tried to bring it up again, she cut me off with a smirk. Still hung up on that? Honestly, Emily, you sound pathetic. Her arrogance burned more than her betrayal. She wasn't just dismissing what happened, she was rewriting it, painting me as weak for even caring. I went to my parents again, hoping maybe they'd finally listen, but the moment I mentioned Jessica's name, their expressions hardened. My mother pressed her lips together, her tone sharp. Emily, you've always envied your sister. Don't make up stories to bring her down. My father's sigh echoed her. She's about to be married. Stop trying to stir trouble. Jealous. That's what they thought of me. Not heartbroken, not betrayed, jealous. Their words crushed what little strength I had left. Every time I reached out for support, the walls only closed tighter around me. Ryan's empty apologies, Jessica's smug dismissal, my parents' blind loyalty. It all stacked against me until I felt like I was screaming into a void. No one believed me. No one wanted to. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth of my place in that family. I wasn't the daughter they protected. I wasn't the woman Ryan cherished. I was just the one expected to swallow the pain and stay quiet. The isolation wrapped around me like a vice, and beneath it, anger began to grow. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a celebration, but the tension clung to me the moment I walked through the doors. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the restaurant, yet I felt like an outsider watching a performance. Jessica sat at the head of the long table, glowing in her bridal white, surrounded by friends and family who adored her. When I took my seat, her eyes flicked to me, sharp and calculating. She raised her glass with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emily, she said sweetly, thanks for actually making it on time tonight. We all know punctuality isn't your strength. The table chuckled politely, but I felt the sting. It wasn't about punctuality. It was her way of reminding everyone I was the lesser sister, even now. Ryan sat across from me, and every time I tried to catch his gaze, he looked away, fiddling with his silverware or pouring himself more water. He barely spoke, and when he did, his words came out clipped, cautious. His distance screamed louder than anything he could say. It was then I noticed the quick glances between him and Jessica. A glance here, a smirk there, like they were sharing a secret joke no one else could understand. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about that one kiss. Something deeper tied them together, something they weren't admitting. I could feel it in the way their eyes lingered just a moment too long. I forced myself to smile, to eat, to act as though my insides weren't burning. Everyone around me was oblivious, toasting to love and new beginnings, while I sat trapped in the middle of a lie. Each toast felt heavier, each laugh more painful, as if the whole evening was designed to remind me that the truth didn't matter here. As dessert was served, Jessica leaned toward Mark, stroking his arm with practiced affection, her eyes flicking to me as though daring me to say something. Ryan shifted in his seat, clearing his throat, avoiding my stare altogether. In that instant, clarity hit me like ice water. They thought I would stay quiet forever. They thought I'd swallow their secret, just like I always had with everything else. I pushed my fork into the cake without tasting it, pulse pounding in my ears. No, I wasn't going to let her glide into that wedding day in a white dress, smiling for photos, pretending she was pure and devoted. She didn't deserve vows. She didn't deserve Mark's trust. That night, watching her laugh with the people who adored her, watching Ryan shrink further into himself, I made a choice. This charade would not last. Jessica might have fooled everyone else, but not me. I was done playing the quiet sister. I wouldn't let her walk down that aisle wrapped in lies. That night, lying awake in the dark, memories came flooding back one after another. It wasn't just about the dinner, or the kiss, or even Ryan's empty apologies. It was a lifetime of moments where I had stepped aside so Jessica could shine. I thought back to being kids, when she would steal my toys and then cry until I got scolded for not sharing. Later, in high school, when she spread rumors about me just to keep boys' attention on her. I had brushed it all off, telling myself that's just how older sisters were. But the more I remembered, the more I realized it had never been harmless. Every time I protected her, every time I stayed quiet, I gave her permission to treat me like I didn't matter. And now, she had taken it to the one place I couldn't forgive, my heart. I sat up in bed, staring into the shadows of my room, my pulse quickening. For years, I'd convinced myself keeping peace was the right thing to do. But all it had ever done was make me invisible. I wasn't going to fade into the background this time. I wasn't going to watch Mark pledge his life to someone who couldn't even keep her lips off my boyfriend. The anger inside me was sharp, but beneath it was something steadier, resolve. This wasn't about jealousy, no matter what my parents believed. It wasn't about me trying to ruin her big day. It was about the truth. Mark deserved to know who he was marrying. He deserved to stand at that altar with open eyes, not be tricked into a life with someone who had already betrayed him before vows were even spoken. I thought about Mark's face when I told him, the way he had crumpled, desperate for proof I couldn't give. That haunted me. He needed more than my word. He needed something undeniable. And if no one else was going to bring it to light, I would. Ideas churned in my head, messy at first, then slowly taking shape. I couldn't just scream at the ceremony. They'd call me jealous, dramatic, bitter. No, if I was going to do this, it had to be undeniable, a truth that couldn't be twisted or brushed off. For the first time since that awful moment in the living room, I felt a flicker of control returning to me. The pain was still there, raw and aching, but it no longer held me down. It pushed me forward. I whispered into the stillness of my room, as though saying it aloud would seal it. I won't let him marry her. Not like this. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about saving someone good from a lifetime of lies. And this time, I wouldn't back down. Not for Jessica. Not for anyone. The morning of the ceremony arrived with a heavy sky, but inside the venue everything sparkled. Guests poured in dressed in their best, their voices rising in cheerful greetings, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The air buzzed with excitement, but for me, every laugh and every clink of glasses only tightened the knot in my stomach. Jessica floated through the room like a queen. Her gown fitted perfectly, her smile flawless. She basked in the admiration, letting everyone dote on her, soaking up the praise as though she hadn't destroyed anything in her path. When her eyes landed on me, her lips curled into that familiar smirk, the one that said she'd already won. "Emily," she called sweetly, beckoning me over. "Fix my veil. It's not sitting right." Her tone carried the weight of command, not request. I adjusted the lace while she didn't bother to thank me, just glanced in the mirror and preened. To her, I was nothing more than an accessory, someone to polish the edges of her perfect day. Inside, my chest thundered. My pulse was loud enough that I wondered if anyone else could hear it. I forced my face calm, my hands steady, even as fire burned beneath my skin. Around me, guests found their seats, the murmur of conversation softening as the organist began to play a slow prelude. The moment was closing in, step by step, second by second. Mark stood at the front, looking sharp in his suit, his expression open and trusting. The sight of him nearly cracked me in two. He still believed. He still thought the woman about to walk toward him was loyal, devoted. My throat tightened, but I swallowed the lump, forcing myself to stay upright. Jessica clutched her bouquet, radiant and smug, soaking in every eye on her. She whispered to me just before taking her place. "Don't cause a scene, Emily. Try not to embarrass yourself." Her words brushed against my ear like poison. That was it. The final push. I stepped back, heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs might split. Guests leaned forward, ready for the music to swell, for the bride to take her first steps down the aisle. The hush in the room deepened, all eyes fixed on her. But before the first note of the wedding march could begin, I felt my legs move on their own. My palms damp, my voice caught in my throat. I stood up straighter and walked forward. Every face turned toward me, confusion rippling through the room. I had been silent for too long. This was the moment I had been building toward, the moment I would no longer let her lies crown her. Right there, with the ceremony seconds away from beginning, I opened my mouth and made my move. I stood at the front of the aisle, every eye fixed on me. The silence stretched, uneasy and sharp, until I finally spoke. My voice wavered at first, but I steadied it. "Before this ceremony begins, there's something everyone here needs to know." Whispers rippled through the room, guests shifting in their seats. Jessica's smile faltered, her bouquet trembling just slightly in her grip. Mark turned toward me, confusion written across his face. I drew in a breath and let it out. A week ago, I walked into my own living room and saw Jessica and Ryan kissing. Gasps broke the hush like glass shattering. I pressed on, not giving her room to twist it. Not an accident, not a misunderstanding. I saw it clearly, the way his hand was on her shoulder, the way she leaned into him. They didn't stop until I caught them. Jessica's face went white, then flushed red. She let out a sharp laugh, brittle and unconvincing. "That's insane. She's making this up because she can't stand to see me happy." I shook my head, refusing to back down. "I remember everything, the way you both froze, the excuses you stammered. You told me it was just a mistake, Jessica. Do you really want me to repeat your words in front of Mark?" Mark's jaw tightened, his gaze snapping to her. "Is this true?" His voice carried through the room, calm but edged with steel. Jessica sputtered, eyes darting between him and the crowd, searching for support. Before she could answer, Ryan stepped forward, sweat beading at his temple. "It wasn't what she's making it sound like," he said quickly, hands raised. "It was just a kiss. That's all. It didn't mean anything." The room erupted with shocked murmurs. Mark stared at him, disbelief turning to fury. "Just a kiss? With her sister?" Jessica spun toward me then, her mask slipping completely. Her voice cracked as she screamed. You couldn't stand that this was my moment. You had to destroy it. You're jealous, Emily. You've always been jealous. Gasps circled again as guests exchanged stunned looks. The elegant setting unraveled in seconds. Some family members tried to calm her. Others whispered frantically, but the damage was done. Mark stepped back, eyes wide, his face hollow with betrayal. He didn't need more proof. The truth was laid bare in front of everyone. Jessica's shrill voice echoed through the hall, but no one moved to defend her. The chaos swelled, the perfect image of her day collapsing right there at the altar. And I stood rooted to the spot, the storm breaking all around me, the weight of silence finally lifted. The chaos at the altar swelled until Mark raised his hand for silence. His face was pale, his jaw set, but his voice was steady. This wedding is over, he said firmly. The words cut through the room, leaving everyone stunned. Jessica dropped her bouquet, her mouth opening and closing without sound. She reached for him, but he stepped back, eyes full of disgust. The guests began to murmur again, chairs scraping as people shifted uncomfortably. Mark didn't wait for arguments. He pulled off his ring and placed it on the table by the officiant, then turned and walked out of the hall. The slam of the doors echoed like a final verdict. Ryan lingered in the corner, his face a mask of shame. For a moment, I thought he might try to come toward me, but he saw the way I looked at him, cold, unyielding. He lowered his gaze and slipped out after Mark, not daring to say a word. He left with nothing, unwanted by both women he thought he could keep. Jessica's wail broke through the stunned silence. She turned on me, her face twisted with rage. You ruined everything, she screamed, her voice cracking. You couldn't stand to see me happy, so you destroyed my life. Tears streaked her makeup, her perfect image dissolving in front of everyone. My parents rushed to her side, voices sharp as they scolded me. My mother's words cut like knives. How could you do this to your sister? My father's glare was colder than I'd ever seen. But I didn't flinch. Their anger washed over me and slid away. For the first time, their disapproval didn't matter. I stood tall, watching Jessica collapse under the weight of her own choices. She tried to push the blame on me, but the truth was already out. Her humiliation was her own doing, not mine. For once, I didn't feel small in her shadow. I didn't feel silenced. I felt free. As the room emptied, whispers trailed behind me, but I didn't care. I walked out into the cool evening air, shoulders lighter than they had felt in years. Betrayal had cut me deeply, but it had also forced me to find my strength. I thought of Mark, walking away from vows that would have chained him to lies. I thought of Ryan, finally stripped of both his safety nets. And I thought of Jessica, left alone with the wreckage she created. For once, I wasn't the sister who stayed quiet. I wasn't the daughter who swallowed pain to keep peace. I had chosen myself. As I stepped away from the venue, I breathed in deeply. The ache was still there, but beneath it was something new. Strength. Freedom. I had spoken the truth, and I would never go back to silence again. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away from them, or should I have given them another chance? Let me know in the comments, I'm curious. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.